Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started in the interest of time. Welcome everyone to Friday. Today's webinar is on Edmentum Geometry and Integrated 3. So I already released some videos and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. So again, thank you for being here on a Friday before a 3-day weekend. I really appreciate it. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm your presenter, Hazel Rios. I believe I know everyone on here, but just in case you don't know me, I work at Skyrocket out of the Irwindale office. I am a math coach, instructional math coach, and I support curriculum as well. So I do a little bit of everything here at Curriculum and PD. Today's agenda, so we're going to go over any questions you may have on the training videos if you had an opportunity to view them. We're going to go over unit activities / course activities, some challenging units, and then the resource folder. Again, this is being recorded, so if you need to step away, please feel free to do so. I will send a follow-up email with all of the resources and all of the information provided here, including this recording and the presentation. Again, if you feel like you would like a refresher or more training on Edmentum, there is a digital course available through Skyrocket EdPD, which is available through your Okta. So if you have any questions, please feel free to either hit me up or you can go straight to the course yourself. Okay, so just a refresher, the course structure is 5 units per course. That is like all of the other Edmentum courses out there. It averages about 4 to 5 modules per unit. The order in which the students would complete each unit is the unit modules, unit / course activities, so there's one or the other in each unit, and a post-test. The graded assignments are the mastery tests, the unit or course activity, and the post-test. So every module does have a mastery test, so just be aware of that. In our courses, our Edmentum math courses that we have released recently, discussions are not included. So I know other Edmentum courses do include discussions, ours do not. And then some of the unit and course activities are hand graded for us. So just being aware of that, which I will speak to shortly. Okay, so this is kind of a short Q&A session. I don't know if anyone has any questions regarding the training videos that I posted up on January 1st, along with the release of the course. So after viewing the videos, what questions do you have? And I'm going to go ahead and take you to that site right now. So I'll show you the path which you can take to get to those videos in case you were not aware. So in the curriculum website, we have an Edmentum resources link. This is where you would go. Hi, someone just came in? No? Okay. So this is where you would go for our Edmentum resources. You would click on Teacher Resources. And then here you would click on Math Curriculum. As you can see, we also have our Dropbox activity answer keys here. And this is where we're going to come to in a minute. So here's our Math Curriculum. And then we do have it categorized by subjects, so integrated, algebra 1 and 2, and geometry. So I currently put out, or I recently, sorry, put out videos on geometry and integrated 3. So let's jump into the integrated folder. And then you can see that we have our 1 and 2 webinar up here as well. And then our integrated math 3 webinar. And so I have the course details, a detailed module overview, and then the unit activities. And then we also have our supplemental resources down below for integrated, all the way from 1A to 3B. So these are the videos that I put up Do you guys have any questions if you had an opportunity to see them, or if you haven't, do you have any general questions about them? Is there something you would like me to go over now? Do we have any resources for graphing? So this question is from Karen and Chino. Hi, Karen, and welcome. We do have some resources for using the graphing tools. Now, Edmentum has their own graphing tool, and then they also refer the students, which I will go over, I can go over now as well, to GeoGebra. We do have some resources for GeoGebra and graphing. On the very first webinar, I went over some basics. I went over a unit activity that included a GeoGebra activity. And so I went over some of the basics in that video, which you have access through here. That first release was integrated 1 and 2. So those are here, if you can see my screen. This unit activity, there's the GeoGebra, and I go over kind of using it and also completing that unit activity. Are there any other graphing tools you were referring to? Because I can go over the one that Edmentum also uses, because there are lesson activities within these courses, and these lesson activities are they are graded. I'm sorry, they're not graded, but they do include learning. So once again, they're not graded, but they include learning, and they ask the students to use those to graph. So let's go and do that. Okay, so I'm gonna see, I don't know off the top of my head, maybe, I wanna say that 3A might in graphing polynomials, trigonometric graphs here. I know that one definitely has to have. Oh wait, was it? Yes, okay. So in a lesson activity, it has the Edmentum graphing tool, as I mentioned. And so this is from 3A, integrated 3A, unit 5, trigonometric graphs. So this is a lesson activity. So as I mentioned, they are not graded. However, they do include learning. So there's lesson embedded in here, and students are required to complete these. They are not able to move on to the next slide unless they complete this. Now, students can really respond anything they want in here. And then once they click submit, it will give them a sample answer. So as long as students are taking notes on this, they will be doing the learning along with it. Okay, so let's do the graphing tool. So it asks them to graph an equation. So for each function, create a table that includes key values such as max, min, and then graph the function using the Edmentum. So here, secant of x. So I would enter here secant x, graph new equation, and then I would probably have to change my scales. What scales do I need for secant x, people? X-axis, y-axis. Let's see. This should be showing, shouldn't it? Let's see, full screen. Nothing. Oh, maybe I don't type it in. Maybe I use this. There we go. Sorry. Okay, so we have the trig functions here that we would be using. And then you click on graph new equation. And then you would simply type in a new equation if you wanted to graph a second equation. And again, click graph new equation, and both would show on there.
Hazel, is there a way for students to have a guide for this so that when they're working on the curriculum that they can see it as well? Or will they need to reach out to us? Because if we could create a resource for the students, I feel like that would be really helpful when they're trying to go through this.
Yeah, so there is no guide right now, but this is something that I can definitely take into account and look into a future, hopefully near future project, putting out a resource. So let me clarify, you would, or make sure I understand correctly, you would like a resource where I kind of quickly guide them through using the Edmentum graphing tool? Is that what
Yes, just basically how to graph and how to input things, because I know that there's this version right now, but I've seen, like, especially on Algebra 2, I've seen different ones where there's like a chart and I had no idea how to input things. Like, it's just a matter of how do I put this in? How do I actually get something to appear? Because again, it's that you move on until you've done it. And if you have no idea how to do it, it's like, it stops you in your tracks. So just those kind of tools, like step-by-step to input it, press this button, kind of maybe with like a PDF to show like with pictures so it's easily accessible for the kids or something.
Okay. So would you like, so hearing that there's different graphing tools in the different courses for math, so kind of a little example of each one?
Yes, if possible.
Or a guide?
That's a big task, but just so that the kids can get through it, and so even like the tutors or the teachers facilitating so that they can provide assistance in actually graphing.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you so much. That would be extremely helpful.
No problem. Do we have any other questions, comments, suggestions, requests? Another chat. Okay, moving on. If you do, just go ahead and let me know. Oops. Okay, so we don't need a break at this point. Okay, so unit and course activities. So these are usually at the end of each unit. However, Geometry A in Unit 4 has it in the middle, and Geometry B Unit 8 has it in the beginning. And the reason we did this is because for the most part, they are summative assessments of concepts learned in the unit, but sometimes they are more of a learning tool that you would need for the rest of the unit. So that's these two unique cases. The other units / course activities are more of a summative assessment of concepts learned in the unit. They are explorative and investigative in nature. They are applicative. They do require some support from either a teacher or tutor, math intervention specialist. Some of them are Dropbox activities. So if those are Dropbox activities, we recommend the students print and complete on paper. They can keep their screen open because, as I mentioned in the training video, there are links that either the students need in order to complete the unit activity, or links that help them with some prerequisite skills that they can use to complete the unit activity. So if they keep their window open, their screen open, and then they have their unit activity printed out and complete that way, then they can submit it to the teacher. And then they would still need to upload it so that it is marked as completed. Does the GEO follow the same content flow as the IS packets? Micah, so when you say content flow, do you mean scope and sequence? Because if so, no, it does not. It's slightly different. Yeah. So, yeah, it is slightly different. But it's the standards are there, so yeah, all the standards are there for our geometry Edmentum course. Okay, so the unit and course activities are graded assignments. For integrated, Anthony, no, the scope and sequence is also slightly different. So unit and course activities are graded assignments. And then we do have 2 that are customized, meaning they are not created, you're welcome. They were not created by Edmentum. Our curriculum developer, Danny, created these. And so these are integrated Math 3A units 1 and 2. So we're gonna go ahead and take a look at where these answer keys are located and anything else that you may need for the unit activities. Oops, sorry. Oh. There we go. Okay, so our unit activity answer keys are located here, as I mentioned before. This is part of the Edmentum Resources website, and it's under the Teacher Resources link. So Dropbox activity answer keys. Once you have access to it the first time, then you will always have access to it. We have math answer keys, English, and others as well. They are listed by course. So here, for example, we have our integrated Math 3A and 3B. And so as I mentioned in the training video, our unit activities all have these answer keys with resources, tasks, and discussions. And what Danny did is she created these discussions here that will help you guide a conversation with your students towards the right answer. So not only are you just looking for the answer, but you're also looking for, are the students on the right path and as far as their thinking. Sometimes students are stuck, so this can help you with that. And so she provides that for every task and every question within the task. There are possible and acceptable answers, thoughts, and explanations, and these are to help the teacher guide the student through that. And then, of course, our scoring rubric at the end and how points are earned for each question or task. Any questions on that? Will these sheets allow to input equations? The Dropbox activities, if the students know how to use equation editor, yes. Otherwise, and if the Chromebooks have access to it, yes. Otherwise, they might not. So it's based on the student's skills and knowledge. So we can create a resource if needed. When you say we, yes. And you can share it with us and we can provide it for everyone, all 60 school sites. Thank you, Karen. That would be awesome and amazing. Yeah. Okay, moving on. Okay, so challenging units. So I've highlighted some of our challenging units in each semester course. In Geometry A, units 2 and 3 are heavy on proofs. And with my teaching experience, speaking from my teaching experience, proofs have always been something that just trips up my students and they have difficulty with. So just letting you know, giving you guys a heads up, these are very heavy on proofs, units 2 and 3 in Geometry A. And then in Geometry B, we have little bit of probability and statistics stuff. And so again, this can also sometimes trip up students. They don't see the connections between math and probability. So just again, giving you a heads up that these units 9 and 10 might be challenging for your students. In integrated, we have rational expressions, and it's split into 2 separate units. And for unit 2, we have a lot of rewriting rational expressions, and the lesson teaches it one way, and then it also includes long division. So I don't know if anyone wants me to go into that rational expressions unit to show you what I'm talking about. If you do, let me know. No? Okay. Unit 4, equations and functions. It goes into some finite geometric sums, graphing polynomial functions. So that can be slightly challenging for some students. And then unit 5 goes into the unit circle, radians, reference angles, and graphing trigonometric functions. So once again, those can sometimes be challenging for the students. In integrated 3B, unit 7 goes into creating equations, estimating solutions, and then unit 9 and 10, again, some more statistics and probability stuff that for some reason just trips up our students. It uses some Excel spreadsheet stuff that they ask the students to go into and use for their lesson activities. So again, some support from a tutor, a teacher, or math intervention specialist might be needed for those units. And then I do want to point out that when the students click on, for the lesson activity, if they click submit, they do show them a sample answer. Some of those graphs are slightly off. There's one in particular that's slightly off in the lesson activity. So just making sure the students are graphing it using that Edmentum tool themselves and then analyzing it themselves, because there's a few errors that I noticed in that graph, and there's nothing we can do on our end. That's an Edmentum course, and that's embedded in there. So there's nothing we can do on our end except let Edmentum know about these errors. Any questions on these challenging units? Okay. Will those errors prevent kids from moving on? I wouldn't say prevent, but it might confuse them. Here, let me show you what I mean. So they might wonder why their answer might be different. Yeah, I'm gonna show you. So they might wonder why their answer may be different from the one that's being shown in the Edmentum course. So I can definitely see that being something that may confuse them. Okay, so it's in unit 7, creating equations, estimating solutions. Let's see here. So it's one of the lesson activities. I believe it might be this one. No, it's not this one, it's the next one. this one. Okay. So this one, what happened is they labeled the scale. And so then when they see this and they compare it to what they graph, so I can graph it for you guys. So x squared minus 5x plus 7. Graphing equation, and then 2 to the x. Okay, so as you can see here, you can barely see, but that's 1, whoops. That's 1 there, that's 2, that's 3, that's 4, that's 5. Same here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this intersection here happens between 1 and 2 on the x and 2 and 3 on the y. When you look at their sample graph here, it's slightly off, and I don't know why. So it looks like the y-axis is correct, but then, well, it does happen between 1 and 2 and 2 and 3. I think it would just, I don't know. Do you guys think it would confuse your students the way it's labeled here? I mean, comparing it to the Edmentum graph? No? Okay, perfect then. Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. And then it says that the solutions lies between 1 and 1.5 and 2 and 2.5. So that they can see here, not so much here. So these are just some things that I noticed. Doesn't save, and it doesn't ask for the graph. The graphing tool doesn't save. Let's see. No, it doesn't ask for the, oh, what does it ask? You mean here? It says graph this system of equations. Right, so remember this lesson activity is not graded at all. So not exactly sure what they're asking them to do here in part A, since they're graphing it on the Edmentum tool. So they wouldn't need to enter anything into the box, I suppose. Yes, you can adjust the scale on the tool so that it matches the one on the sample answer. So we could do -5 to 5 to like zoom in. But it still doesn't do half. But yeah, we can definitely change that. But here they show 0.5. Any questions or comments, suggestions? Okay. Moving on. So, okay, so as I was showing you, lesson activities, they're not graded, but they are investigative learning. So students are doing learning, and there is learning embedded within these lesson activities. So there may be a little bit of a productive struggle, and this is where the teachers come in and support that productive struggle to advance student learning. Okay, so in the resource folder, as I had shown you previously, that is where we have, so you would, I don't know why it took me there. So you can access that through, again, the Edmentum resources link in curriculum. And then you can go to teacher resources, and here under math curriculum, in our math curriculum, we have integrated algebra 1 and 2 and geometry. Yes, I will be sharing everything with everyone. And then in within integrated or any of these courses, there are supplemental material guides down here. So for example, if we take a look at Math 3A, integrated Math 3A. So we have a unit or overview, and it's the course overview along with graded assignments, course goals, and then some tips for student success. We recommend students keep a notebook for these classes, again, just to take notes on examples, terms, videos, and any of those lesson activity sample answers that they provide. Okay, so I have what we call prerequisite resources category, module resources, which are the ones that are included within the course itself, within the module, and then supplemental module resources. So there are some courses that do not provide any resources. So that's where I came in and created some of these resources myself. Notebooks for IM 1 through 3 or just 3. I would recommend for all math courses that we've released through Edmentum. Yeah, I recommend notebooks for all of the math courses. Okay, so in the supplemental module resources, I've provided videos, and in some cases I've provided worksheets, more examples. I've created supplemental lessons, and then other cases I've also included some interactive activity links and some kind of like a review / parallel problems to the test type of activity or lesson. And that's all just depending on what type of lesson it was and the time I had. So I did that for all 4 courses: Geometry A, Geometry B, Integrated Math 3A, and Integrated Math 3B. And so this one, so here, for example, test review problems. And the reason I did that with some of these is because some of these modules, as I mentioned in the training video, some of these modules are newer and some of these are older. And the ones that are older have a practice in between the lessons, which is the tutorial, and the test. Some of these modules do not. They go directly from the tutorial to the tests. And so the students don't have an opportunity to practice some of those problems, and they don't see the type of problems that may be asked. Do students have access to these supplemental resources videos? I'm not sure, but you can definitely give them access. I can find that out for you, actually. Let me find out that answer for you, and I will share that in the email that I send out, the follow-up email. So again, some of those modules, here, I can show you. For example, this one, this is only 2 items, meaning it goes directly from the lesson to the test. Versus here, 3 items. This application piece, so this is an older type of module. This application piece has problems exactly like the ones on the test. This is not graded, the application is not graded, yet they have an opportunity to practice those problems that they will see on the test versus here. So I try to do that for some of these lessons, especially if I saw that there was somewhat of a disconnect between the lesson and the test. So that's what you have in these supplemental guides. Let's take a look at a geometry one. So we look at geometry B. So the layout is always going to be the same. We have our unit overview. And then notice this does have a lot of module resources. So these were already included within the the module itself, within the course itself from Edmentum. So they have what they call guided notes. These are like closed notes. So the students follow along and they fill in the blanks. They can print these, or if they access them directly through the course itself. So for example, if they are going to access it directly through here, when they click on, and I show all this in my training, when they click on this resource folder, they can access the notes through here. It will open up a new tab and they can type directly into these if they'd like. So this is one resource available through Edmentum. However, not all courses have that. So for example, this is one of our integrated course. It doesn't have any resources. That's where I created. So go ahead.
Are those just notes for them on the side to help them, or is
Yes.
this required?
No, these are just notes. Notes that they can use to guide them through the lesson as they're learning. Okay, and then where was I? Okay. And then there's also worksheets that they can use for these as well. So one of the things I do want to point out in integrated is that it is this an integrated lesson? I believe it is. Yeah. It is heavy on what we call knowledge articles. So I want you to be aware, and I will go over that in a unit activity, because they use actually one of those articles for unit activities or for the lesson, and they ask questions about it on the test or in a unit activity. So let's see. Let's go into Unit 9 in Integrated 3B. So, activity, sampling, let's see. So in here, so notice we don't have any resources. However, let's see. Is this one? This might actually might not be one. Okay, sorry, this might not have been the one. Was that even Unit 9 actually? No, that was Unit 7. That's why. Okay, so for example, in Unit 9, they have this, which they don't really need to look at, but they have links here. And some of these links are very important, knowledge article, because as mentioned, they do provide information that they will need for either a lesson activity, a unit activity, or the test. And it provides, so this here itself is embedded with a lesson. So it is very important that students click on these, and if they want to, they can print them out. So I've also included these in the supplemental resource guide. Let's see if it's been updated. It has not been updated, but I will update that before the end of today. And it does include all of the knowledge articles that are here. And they do refer to it throughout the tutorial. So it'll say, now read this section of the knowledge article. Read more about experimental design here. So this is a different knowledge article, and this is also important that the students click, read, and print if they want in order to use for the lesson activity, a unit activity, or a test. Are there any questions on these knowledge article links? As I mentioned, I will have the updated supplemental resource guide by the end of today, but they are accessible through the tutorial itself. Okay. Okay, and then our unit activity today is going to be Integrated Math 3 Semester B Unit 9. And the reason I chose this one is because this is a probability one, and it is also one that we used in Algebra 2. It's actually the same activity. So if you either assigned Algebra 2 or you're going to assign Integrated Math 3, this is the same unit activity, and bonus, you get to kind of go over it with me. Okay, so this is on data and random sampling. So in this unit activity, again, I'll quickly, briefly go over it. The cover page and the layout is the same for all cover pages on all unit activities. And so this is a structure that, again, Danny has created. So it lists the goals and objectives. And then here in this resource box, you will have an Edmentum how-to submitting a Dropbox activity. And then sometimes she also includes links. And again, those links can be either for prerequisite skills that the students may need to complete this unit activity, or they may be links to something that they need to complete this unit activity. So it might send them to GeoGebra, or it might send them to a video or something that is necessary for them to complete the unit activity. In this case, they just have the Dropbox activity directions. Okay, and then we jump into this first task. Would you guys like me to go over it in detail? Skim over it? What would you like me to do? First person to respond is the way I'm going to do it.
Hazel, my question is pretty much just how do we keep this online? Because I know there's a lot of Dropbox activities that you're mentioning. The best thing is to kind of print it and then work on it and then upload it.
Yes.
In terms of uploading it, I mean, it just gets more complicated with that. So if they want to just work on the computer, is that doable?
No, not if it's a Dropbox activity, it's not possible. So if it's a Dropbox activity, well, yes, I mean, sorry, they can download it and then work on it if they know how to use, like was mentioned earlier, right, with the equation editor. If they know how to do all that, then by all means, go ahead and complete it on the computer itself.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm quickly gonna kind of go into this unit activity. Okay, so for this unit activity, we have a food company that sells food to stores across the nation. Some of these are new customers and some are returning customers. The company has set a strategic initiative for New Year to increase the proportion of its sales to new stores. The sales director is conducting research to determine whether the company's sales representatives need additional field training to accomplish the company's goals. Based on experience from the previous year, the sales director has constructed a model. This model reflects projections of the breakdown of sales order for the new year specific to the company's sales regions. The model is shown below. So in this table, what we're showing is that the manager or the company would like 85% of the sales to come from their current stores in the Midwest, 74% from the current stores in the South, and 83% from the current stores in the Northeast. And then they would like 15% of the sales to come from the new stores in the Midwest, 26% from the South, and 17% from the Northeast. So that's what this table here is providing. During the first month of the new year, the sales director collected data on the sales orders for sales representatives within each region. Assume that sales representatives work in only one region. Okay, so in the current store, we have 362 from the Midwest, 66 from new stores, 197 from the South, 115 from the South in the new stores, and then 250 from the Northeast current stores, and 60 from new stores in the Northeast. So the first question is, in the first month of the new year, the Midwest region secures a sales order from 362 current stores and 66 new stores. Is this data consistent with the sales director's model? So the answer is yes. And then the work or the discussion shown below here, which can help you guide your students through this, is to determine consistency, calculate the proportion of sales orders that are from new stores by dividing the number of sales orders from new stores by the total number of sales orders. Since the actual proportion is approximately equal to the projected proportion given in the first table, the actual data is consistent with the model. Okay, so once again, we take the new stores divided by total sales in that region, and we have a 15%. So yes, the new stores are meeting that projection goal. Okay, the second question is very similar. And it asks regarding the South. And so if we do the same math for the South, we realize that it's 37%. And so it's not consistent with the projections. It's greater than the projected proportion. Then the third question, suppose the strategy of the pet food company is to increase the proportion of sales orders from new stores in each region to 25%. So consider the data and proportions of sales from new stores from each region in the first month. Do you think additional field training is necessary? So if we do, so we would compare, right, to 25% target. And if we do the math for the final one, so we did it for the first and we did it for the second, the Midwest and the South. If we do it for the Northeast, we find that it's at 19%. So our guiding response would be that the Midwest and the Northeast should do training since they're below the 25% sales goal. However, the South is already exceeding that projection, so they would not need training. Okay, then conducting statistical studies in the next task. So question number 4, what type of study is the sales director conducting? So this is something the students would have learned within the lessons in Unit 9. And so they give them between 2 types of statistical studies, and it's either observational or experiment. And so the answer would be experiment. And then here, because they're comparing the group that gets training with the group that does not get training to see if the training helps sales. And it goes into the difference between experiment and observational in Unit 9. Number 5, describe how you would design the selection of subjects for this study. Assume there are 1,000 total sales representatives in the Midwest and Northeast regions with 500 in each region. About half of the representatives in each region were assigned the training and half were not. Be sure to describe any processes you would include in your study to contribute to the best design possible. So the answer would be randomize the sample picked for the comparison study. Processes will vary. So here it gives you more of a detailed answer. And again, sample answer to guide your students through this thinking. I would select 250 sales representatives from those who receive training. This is the treatment group. Select 250 for the control group that didn't receive any training to make a random selection group. To make a random selection, group the sales representatives into 2 blocks according to region. Then randomly select 125 from each block for the treatment group. So this is called blocking, and this is something that they learned in one of those knowledge articles. So again, it is important that the students read through those knowledge articles because they are applying that information throughout the unit. Okay, suppose the company decided to allow the sales representatives to choose whether to participate in the field training or opt out. There are 400 who have chosen to participate and 600 who have chosen to opt out. How might the self-selection process affect the statistical validity of the comparison? And of course, the students can have different answers, but definitely somewhere along the lines of this would increase the possible effect of unknown factors or bias and is not a random selection of participants. And then it goes into what happens. So for example, the 200 sales reps who self-selected themselves may have done so because they are the most ambitious. They opted for training to better their skills and improve their sales. In addition, if they indeed are more ambitious, their proportion of sales orders from new stores may already be higher than the new store sales orders of those who opted out. So this is a sample answer, and your answers may vary, obviously, but this is to help guide you and guide your students. Okay, establishing causality. So again, this is something that they learn within the lesson, within the unit, I mean, is often a main focus of statistical studies. What is the best type of study to conduct and establish, to establish causality? Use the situation in this task to support your answer. So to establish causality, it's best to conduct an experiment. In an experiment, we are able to control the environment, which allows us to determine whether there is a cause and effect relationship between variables. For example, in this situation, we have a control group that gives us a comparison, so we can determine whether the field training resulted in any improvement for those in the treatment group. Without having a control group to compare to, we can't establish whether any improvements are a direct result of the field training or might be attributed to other factors. And that would conclude this unit activity. So it is not a very difficult one. However, it is heavy on terms and examples that they learned in the unit, and being able to apply those within this unit activity. Are there any questions on this unit activity? Okay. Any questions on the answer key, the rubric, the scoring guide, any other unit activity? No questions. Thank you, Karen, for responding. Okay, so I believe that concludes our webinar. If there is anything else that you would like me to go over, we definitely have a few minutes. Okay, so this concludes our webinar for today. If there are no other questions, thank you so much for joining us. Please feel free to send any emails, Google Chats, phone calls, and I will be more than happy to answer them. Danny is our curriculum writer, so if you'd like to ask her any questions, please feel free to do so as well. And Maggie Delgado is our supervisor. If you have any questions for her as well, you can feel free to reach out. I will be sending, again, all of this information in the follow-up email, which will include the presentation, the recording, and all of the links to the resources that I have shown you today. Okay, that concludes our webinar. Thank you so much for joining. Have a very happy and exciting weekend. And again, thank you for being here.